up, guys? Welcome back to Keep It Hoop. So today I wanted to go over some of the games from earlier in the week, and then also look ahead to some of the games that should be happening this weekend. If you haven't yet, or if you're actually watching this on YouTube, and if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. But yeah, the first game I want to talk about was Bucks Nuggets on Monday. The Bucks ended up winning 125 to 112, and it was another game where Jokic did his thing and he played really well, had himself 35, 12, and 6, and the team just failed to really support him. Michael Porter Jr., who's been pretty disappointing ever since he missed time due to the COVID safety protocols, he had 8, 2, and 7, and he had a solid. The last game he was actually solid, but that game against the Bucks, he just didn't show up. Jamal Murray, 11 points, and look, Will Barton had himself 24 points, and if you're having 24 points from Will Barton, I feel like you should be able to win if you're the Nuggets. I mean, granted, Jokic is going to get you anywhere from 25 to 35 on a nightly basis. Hopefully, Jamal Murray is getting his 18 to 22 or whatever, and Porter can chip in 15, 16. Even Millsap at 14. So that's a game that was super winnable. And granted, it is against the Bucks, but they give up 125, and Denver's defense continues to be a problem. And I've talked about this in the past as well, but Denver in the past have had a very solid defense, and it was good enough to supplement their really good offense, right? And this year it just hasn't been the case. And I get that they're not the most. If you look at their roster, it's not like they have a lot of lockdown guys or whatever. But in the past, they were able to hide, right? Like, cause Jokic is a bad defender, and there's no questioning that. He's just not a good defender. Pick and roll, man to man. He's not the best defender. But they were able to hide his weakness with just good scheming, good effort, good team defense. And obviously having guys like Plumlee and Grant down low were key, because those are guys who are above average at switching on to smaller guys, and they're pretty active. And then you have guys like Monte Morris and Gary Harris, who are also good defenders, and they were able to again just play enough defense to go along with the really good offense they had. Well, this year their offense has been shaky at times, with MPJ and Jamal Murray again struggling at times. And then if you combine that with the fact that they just can't stop a lot of people right now, that's been the reason for their early season struggles. It showed up against Milwaukee again. And look, Chris Middleton went off for 29. Giannis went for 30. And I get those guys are going to have nights like that. But they gave up 13 to DiVincenzo, 15 to Bryn Forbes, which really hurt them. And this was a game where the Bucks didn't even have Drew Holiday, and they were still able to pull out the win. So good win for Milwaukee, going to Denver and picking up a win on the road without Drew. This was a chance for Denver, who had been playing somewhat better as of late, to really turn the corner. I think especially after, a win against like Utah, to string together some solid wins, but they weren't able to do it. There were some other, decent games on Monday. Toronto ended up beating Memphis by 15 as they continue to try to claw their way back into the Eastern Conference playoff race. Spurs won a close one over the Warriors, and the Warriors continue to be a little bit inconsistent. And you had the Lakers, I think, the first of their two games against OKC, won by 7. But OKC has played them really close in both of those games. So I think that was good for those young guys over there. Tuesday has some good games. The Pistons beat the Nets 112 to 111. They didn't have KD still, but after the game, Kyrie said they just look average. And these are games that if you're Brooklyn, you have to start winning consistently. You're gonna be talking about seeding in the playoffs, and just to build that continuity, some chemistry and confidence going into the playoffs. And I mean, look, they've lost 2 games to the Wizards, and now this. And this is another game where their defense just didn't cut it. They gave up again 122 to the Pistons. And I mean, I think they'll be fine. And they showed when we talk about the Pacers game a little bit, and that they can be a lot better. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But a disappointing loss against the Pistons. You had the Heat Knicks, which was a close game. Derrick Rose making his Knicks debut. Looked pretty good actually, but the Heat able to pull away in that one. That's another team that, again, they're going to need to start stringing together some wins after struggling for much of the beginning of the season. They're kind of in the same boat as Toronto, where they started really slow. People were surprised and confused about what was going on. But they're finally starting to string together some wins. And, again, just trying to improve their seeding and record. You had the Warriors beating the Spurs after losing to them on Monday. Beat them pretty handily. And Steph, back-to-back 30-plus point games. He's looked really good as of late and trying to add to his MVP resume and just reminding everyone, just how good he is. I know people, not everyone, but a lot of people were kind of down on him this year. He was in the, people were discussing if he was even a top two, top three point guard. And he's showing that he's not just a shooter and that he's not washed up, that he's still very, very good. And, he put on a good performance against the Spurs. Celtics ended up finishing out their, I believe that was the last game on their West Coast trip, but they took a pretty big loss, a 14-point loss to the Utah Jazz. And granted, the Jazz have been playing well, but man, Kemba Walker did not help. I think he had 7 points. Just didn't shoot the ball well at all, and he's someone that I had as the most disappointing player on the Celtics when I was going through the list of just most disappointing guys on each team. And I get he started the season injured, but he didn't perform well in the playoffs last year, and Danny Ainge kind of led us to believe that he was going to get healthy and that after the surgery he was going to be back to his old self. And maybe some of it is kind of taking or just getting used to that third option role, because at the end of the day, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have kind of taken this team and are the guys now, right? And Kemba Walker is if he can be anywhere close to his old self, a very good third option to have on a contending team. But he's not even close to there right now, and he struggled with his shot. He looks like he just isn't able to get to his spots as easily, and then even when he does, he's just not able to finish. Hopefully, it's it's a thing of just getting used to his I'd say new role, and also just continuing to get in shape and back in rhythm. I'm a big Kemba fan. Been a fan of him since the early Charlotte days, the Bobcat days. New York point guard, smaller point guard that I've watched a lot. So hopefully he starts to get it together, because that Celtics team, in terms of at least offense and scoring, they're gonna need all the help they can get. Right, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are gonna give you the solid 25 to 30 plus points a night. But other than that, they really don't have any consistent scorers. Jeff Teague has kind of been, the a lot of people have pointed fingers as to like just he's one of the reasons that they've been so bad. And granted, he has been playing bad, but he's kind of been one of the scapegoats. Robert Williams is a guy that's solid off the bench in terms of just rebounding and defense, but he's not going to score much. Peyton Pritchard makes the small plays, but after the injury, he's still kind of getting back to his form. Semi Ojale, I know he had a big night last night, but he's not someone who's going to score a lot consistently. Grant Williams, you're not going to expect double-digit scoring from nightly. And Tristan Thompson's going to get you maybe anywhere from 10 to 15 at best, and Daniel Tice, probably isn't going to be a big scorer anyways. So other than Tatum and Brown, the Kemba really is the one guy that can get his own shot and get it consistently, and is capable of going off for huge nights. So they need him to step up. Now, obviously, Marcus Smart being out hurts them on both ends of the floor, and even just intangibles, not just statistics. They need him back, and he's really the heart and soul of that team. So I'm not panicking yet if I'm a Celtics fan, and I'm not by any means counting them out. But I do need to see more from Kemba for me to feel more comfortable about them going forward. Now, Wednesday has some pretty close games. We'll start off with the Hawks Mavericks, which was on ESPN. Came down to the last shot. Trae Young seemed like he got pushed over while setting a screen. Maybe he sold it a bit, but he ended up getting fined for going at the refs after the game. But yeah, it was a very close game. I know there's always going to be the Luka and Trae Young comparisons, and Trae Young's never going to be able to escape those comparisons. And Trae's a very good player himself. I don't know if he'll ever get to the Luka level, but I mean, it was a win-win trade. It really was. The Hawks got a draft pick out of it, on top of getting Trae Young, and I mean, both teams are very happy with the guy they ended up with. But the Mavericks end up pulling out a close one there. It was a game between two teams that I honestly expected more from at the beginning of the season. Now, I know both teams had their share of injuries. Dallas had Josh Richardson and KP, to name a few guys, missed some time. And Atlanta's obviously had a lot of injuries with Bogdanovich, Danilo Gallinari missing time earlier in the season. You also had Rondo missing most of the season so far. So, it's two teams kind of on a similar path. They, I'm sure, had higher expectations for themselves and are just trying to scrap together wins while they can. And I mean, obviously they both have playoff aspirations and more. But yeah, they got to start just stringing together some wins, and it's there are two young teams that are just trying to learn how to win consistently, and it's not always easy, especially if you don't have a lot of veteran guys. Like, and both teams have a few, but yeah, I mean, when your main guys are still the older or the younger guys, it's gonna take some time, and there's gonna be some growing pains, and they're going through that right now. The Lakers and Thunder went to OT, and Lakers ended up pulling this one out 1-1. Again, the Thunder just continue to play some of these really good teams close, and props to them. They just keep battling. SGA is having a really, really good year. It just, if you look at the numbers, it's all-star worthy. And he's really breaking out and taking that next step now that he has the complete control of the offense. And what else? I mean, the Bucks and Suns played a really close game, and the Suns were able to pull out a win. Chris Paul's been playing really, really, really well over the last week or so, and he's just showing, he still has a lot left in the tank, and just how important he is to whatever team he's playing on. This is now the third straight team, fourth. I mean, whatever team he goes to, they're always winning, right? And you go back to when he was drafted, and those Hornets teams were really bad, and he got them far. And then you see him going to the Clippers and how, what he did over there. Houston, and then OKC, and now Phoenix. And granted, it doesn't always work out for him in the playoffs, but it's at least in the regular season, he's able to take whatever team he's on, however young, inexperienced, and just turn them into solid winning teams. So props to him. Shout outs to him, playing really good basketball. Touch on the Nets Pacers a little bit. I did a video on this yesterday, so go check that out. But yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely a better sighting from the Nets and their defense. I talked about how DeAndre Jordan looked a lot better and more active, both rebounding and as a interior defender, and even on offense, catching lobs. And I know he had some yelling matches with Steve Nash and James Harden and some of the guys on the team. So it was nice to see him kind of come out and just respond to that. I do think, when I watched the game, that the Pacers' offense was just poorly executed and they weren't really playing well themselves. So I don't want to go out and say, the Nets have turned the corner, their defense is great. There were still some miscommunications. Pacers missed some open shots and just, again, didn't execute well. But overall, a good win for the Nets to really get back on track a little bit. And again, it was without KD. So, any win without KD you'll take. And again, it was also against the Pacers, who aren't, a bottom tier team. So nice of them on that end. Last night, the Celtics picked up a win over the Raptors. The Raptors, again, just being a little bit inconsistent, not able to pick up wins consistently at the moment. Pacers bounced back with a solid win against the Pistons, in which they won by 14, I believe, or 16. Warriors beat the Magic. Steph continuing to play really well. Last night, he had himself 40 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. Again, just proving to people that he's still really, really, really good. The Heat Rocket game on TNT was pretty good. The Rockets have been a bit inconsistent and struggling as of late, and the Heat, I think 3, 4, I don't know, they have a decent amount of wins consecutively now. So good to see them kind of, again, string together wins. A lot of it was defense, and their defense has been, solid still, right on the back of Jimmy and Bam Adebayo. Last night was a night where their offense wasn't pretty, and that's been a lot the case in a lot of these games. It's been very, they just have droughts on offense sometimes, and obviously Miami's had a lot of injuries this year, so it's not something that I'm going to go out and say that last year was a fluke or that they're just, straight out bad this year. But Tyler Hero misses a lot of time. Goran Dragic is in and out of the lineup. And, those are two guys who are very key for this team on offense. Goran Dragic, I think we saw last year in the finals just how important he is. I think Jimmy Butler is the best player on this team, but you can make an argument that Dragic is one of, if not the most important players on this team, because he brings an aspect and a skill set on this team that not a lot of guys have, and it's the ability pretty much to get into the paint at will. And if your point guard is able to do that, it just opens up so much for the rest of your guys. Jimmy can focus on, getting to the mid post and just straight up scoring, and Tyler Hero can just worry about only scoring, and Duncan Robinson has a lot more space and opportunities to catch and shoot the ball, and then you have the pick and roll with Bam, and Goran just I think again, he's not the best player on the team individually, but he's the one guy that allows everyone to be their best selves. And, that's a very good sign of a true point guard. And not to mention, the 18 points he can get you on a nightly basis, and another guy who can stretch the floor with his shooting. And again, they just don't really have a point guard. They're playing Iggy, and they're playing, Jimmy at the point, Kendrick Nunn, but Kendrick Nunn's more of a scorer. Jimmy's more of a scorer, and Iggy just isn't. He's an offense facilitator, but he's not someone that's gonna, create a lot of plays by driving and kicking, and that's what they really miss from Goran. Um, but yeah, it was a game where they were able to win with their defense, and I know Oladipo didn't finish the game, and it is what it is. But Miami trying to battle back to 500. Both of those teams now after last night's game at 11 and 14. The other game on TNT last night, Sixers Blazers, was also really good. Came down to the wire, and Portland really, really scrapped away and came away with a game against a really good Philadelphia team, and they still don't have CJ McCollum or Nurkic, very short-handed, and it was a big game for them. They won despite Embiid getting 35 and Ben Simmons getting 23, and Tobias Harris chipping in 17, and even Seth Curry with 15. But they have a lot of balanced scoring, right? And Melo came up huge. Everyone's gonna talk about Dame's 30, but Gary Trent had 19, Cantor with 10 and 14, and battled after needing stitches on his eyes. But now Carmelo Anthony with 24, showing and he talked a lot about just having rhythm, and he's always been a rhythm player. And it was a lot easier to have rhythm when you're playing 30, 35 minutes a game and getting 15, 16, 17 shots like he used to. And he's been very vocal about this himself, but again, just having to adjust to his new role on some of these teams, and he's done a very good job of that. But you get him some shots, you give him some momentum, and it's a guy that can still get you 20, 30 points. And maybe it doesn't happen that often anymore, but I mean, look, he's still one of the greatest scorers the game has ever seen, and he's showing just how talented he still is. Big game for him, big game for Portland as they try to just again maneuver themselves in the Western Conference playoff race. And rough loss for Philadelphia, but it was on the road, and it was part of it was kind of disappointing just because Philadelphia is a team that's been very good on defense recently, just overall in the season really. And Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, their two best players, are good defenders, which you can't say about every NBA team nowadays. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Came down to the wire. It was still winnable. I think you kind of just move on. You take what you can from that game, and you just move on. But a very good game, very fun game to watch. So what are some of the games today and over the weekend that should be interesting? Knicks Wizards is interesting only for me because I know Bradley Beal isn't playing. He's gonna get his first game off, I think, this year, and I think it might be close. I'm just interested to see what that Wizards offense looks like without Bradley Beal. Russell Westbrook might have a usage rate of 60. Who knows? The Knicks, after dropping 2 straight to Miami, they're going to want to pick up a win as they try to continue to, they're going to try to stay relevant in the playoff race. And it is what it is over there. Jazz Bucks, in another game should be very interesting to watch. Two teams who are, towards the top of their conference. And Lakers Grizzlies, maybe another one. Where Grizzlies are another just tough team that likes to play, that often plays the Lakers pretty close and pretty tough. I have the Lakers winning, but should be maybe not the most entertaining game to watch, but should be a close game. Tomorrow you have Sixers Suns. Sixers trying to get back in the win column after yesterday's game. The Suns trying to continue their hot streak, and it should be a good game. Pacers Hawks, two teams again battling in the Eastern Conference for playoff positioning. Knicks Rockets, two teams that again are kind of struggling, trying to stay in the playoff picture. Should be a close game as well. And you have actually every game on tomorrow is actually good because you also have Nets Warriors, who I know is a blowout the first time they played, and both teams look different. The Warriors have definitely been playing better, and Dre's back, but Wiseman's out. Now, the Nets didn't have James Harden at the time, so it's a totally different, really, team playing against each other. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think it could be fun to watch, especially with the way Steph's playing. And then you have Heat Jazz. If Miami can pull off a win on the road against the Jazz, that'll be a really good sign as to just where they're at. It's gonna be a test again. Dragic is still out, Hero's still out. But if they can get that win, that'll be a huge win for them, confidence booster, morale booster for them going forward. On Sunday, let's see, Mavs Blazers might be a decent one to watch. Lakers Nuggets though, yeah, that's the big one. That's the big one at night, 10 o'clock game. But yeah, that's Western Conference Finals rematch, and I don't. Jokic was actually kind of ineffective when they played against each other. I think last week or the week before that. LA has a bunch of big men they can throw at him, different looks. They have AD. Marc Gasol is a very strong guy, as big as Jokic. And, Lakers are obviously a very good defensive team. And if Denver's a team where if they're not scoring, it's hard for them to win just because they don't really stop anyone. So another test for them, hopefully. For that game to be close or for Denver to really have a chance, MPJ or probably both MPJ and Murray are going to have either solid games, or one of them is going to have a really good game. Because I think Jokic is still going to Jokic is still going to do him, but he just needs help, man. I watched that Denver team, and they were a lot of fun to watch last year, but this year they've just been so inconsistent on top of the bad defense that it's been a little bit unfortunate and disappointing. But yeah, that'll be it for today. I guess video-wise, a bit longer. Podcast-wise, a little bit shorter. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Do follow our social media pages. It is keep_it_hoop on Instagram. It is keep it hoop blog on Twitter. We will follow you back. Just want to engage in some conversation with you guys around all things basketball. And again, just update you guys on projects we have coming up. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will be back possibly tomorrow, but definitely on Monday if not. All right, thanks.